The sun broke slow over the dry hills of West Texas, spreading gold across a ranch that was still mostly asleep. Morning air carried that familiar smell. Dust, leather, dry grass. The kind of smell that only exists in places where work starts before the coffee gets cold. At the main gate of Whitaker Ranch, rows of white wooden fences cut across the horizon like hard lines drawn against the earth. Inside those fences, hundreds of head of cattle represented millions of dollars in selective breeding, prize-winning genetics, bloodlines traced back generations, animals worth more than most people's houses. But in that far corner of the corral, away from the well-kept areas, there was a smaller pen, and inside it stood an animal nobody wanted anymore. The bull was huge, heavy, black coat dull in the early light. He stood with his head low, perfectly still. On the side of the corral, a handmade sign hung crooked on the wire. Rejected. For the wealthy investors who ran Whitaker Ranch, this animal was just an expensive mistake. Temperament too strong. Bloodline considered unpredictable. In the breeding market, that meant one thing: no value. And when a bull has no value, the outcome is simple: slaughter. Across the ranch, while the first trucks began arriving and kicking up clouds of dust, a man rode slowly through the property on horseback. His hat was worn by sun, his boots marked by years of work. His denim shirt had seen better days. He was just a ranch hand, a lone cowboy. Tom Bennett was 52 years old and had worked cattle since he was 14. Never owned land, never ran an operation, just showed up every morning, did the work, collected his pay, and went home to a trailer on the edge of someone else's property. Most people barely noticed him. He preferred it that way. Tom didn't talk much, didn't need to. Spent most of his time with animals because animals didn't ask questions or expect things he couldn't give. This morning, he was riding fence line, checking for breaks, looking for weak posts, the kind of work nobody else wanted to do. That's when he passed the forgotten pen. The bull lifted his head slowly. Their eyes met. Tom pulled his horse to a stop. He'd seen rejected animals before, seen bulls marked for slaughter, seen stock sold off cheap because they didn't fit the profile buyers wanted. But something about this one made him pause. The bull wasn't defeated, wasn't broken. He was just waiting. Tom dismounted and walked closer to the fence. The bull didn't move, just watched him with dark, steady eyes. Tom noticed the scar along the bull's shoulder. Old injury, healed rough, the kind of mark that came from something violent. He noticed the way the bull held himself, tense but controlled, like coiled strength waiting for permission to release. And he noticed the tag clipped to the bull's ear. Lot 47, rejected. Scheduled removal, today. Tom's jaw tightened. Removal meant slaughter truck, meant this animal had hours left. He heard boots on gravel behind him. That one's done, Bennett. Tom turned. Stan Cooper, the ranch foreman, stood 20 feet away with a clipboard and a coffee cup. What happened to him? Tom asked. Stan shrugged. Temperament issues. Threw 2 handlers last month. Mr. Whitaker decided he wasn't worth the liability. Truck comes at noon. What's wrong with his temperament? Won't be controlled. Fights the chute. Kicks when you try to move him. Doug says he's dangerous. Tom looked back at the bull. He looks calm to me. That's because nobody's trying to work him right now. Stan took a sip of coffee. Look, I know you got a soft spot for animals, but this one's a lost cause. Doug Whitaker made the call himself. Bull goes today. Stan walked off toward the main barn. Tom stood there staring at the bull. The animal stared back, and in that silent moment, something shifted in Tom Bennett's chest. He'd spent 38 years working ranches for other men, following orders, keeping quiet, never making waves. But this felt different. This felt wrong. At 11:30, Tom found Doug Whitaker in the ranch office. Doug sat behind a massive oak desk, expensive boots propped up on the corner, talking on his cell phone about stock prices and investment returns. He was 45, wore tailored shirts and a Rolex that cost more than Tom made in a year, ran Whitaker Ranch like a corporation because that's exactly what it was. Doug waved Tom in without breaking his phone conversation. Tom waited. Finally, Doug hung up. What do you need, Bennett? The bull in pen 12, lot 47. Doug's expression didn't change. What about him? I want to buy him. Doug blinked, then laughed. You're serious? Yes, sir. Bennett, that bull's got a bad temperament. He's worthless as breeding stock. That's why he's going to slaughter. I'll take him anyway. Doug leaned back in his chair. Why? Because I think he's worth more than you're giving him credit for. Based on what? Your gut feeling? Tom held his ground. Based on 38 years working cattle. I know a good animal when I see one. Doug studied him for a long moment, then shook his head. The answer's no, Bennett. That bull's already sold to the processor. Truck's on the way. Then let me buy him before the truck gets here. I'll pay what the processor would. You don't have that kind of money. How much? Doug smiled, cold, amused. $800. Tom felt his stomach drop. 800 was more than he had, more than he could get. But he didn't move. Give me till end of day. I'll get it. Truck comes at noon, Bennett. That's 30 minutes from now. Then delay it. Why would I do that? Because it's the right thing to do. Doug's smile faded. The right thing? This is a business, not a charity. That bull doesn't produce, doesn't breed clean, doesn't fit our program. He's a liability. And I don't keep liabilities. Tom's hands curled into fists at his sides. That bull's not a liability, Mr. Whitaker. He's just different than what you wanted. Doesn't make him worthless. In this business? Yeah, it does. The two men stared at each other. Finally, Doug stood. The bull goes at noon. If you're smart, you'll stay out of the way. Tom turned and walked out, but he wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Tom had 30 minutes. He walked straight to the bunkhouse where the other ranch hands stayed, pushed open the door, and found Ray Martinez sitting on his bunk rolling a cigarette. Ray, I need to borrow money. Ray looked up. How much? 800. Ray nearly dropped his cigarette. Are you out of your mind? The bull in pen 12. Whitaker's sending him to slaughter at noon. I want to buy him. Why? Because he doesn't deserve to die just because Doug Whitaker can't see his value. Ray studied Tom's face, then shook his head. I got maybe 200 saved, that's it. I'll take it. Ray pulled a worn envelope from under his mattress and counted out bills. You're crazy, Bennett. You know that? Yeah, I know. Tom took the money and ran. Next stop was the feed store in town. Old Pete Granger had known Tom for 20 years. Pete, I need a favor. Pete looked up from behind the counter. What kind of favor? I need $600. Right now. I'll pay you back. Pete's eyebrows shot up. 600? Tom, I don't have that kind of cash sitting around. You got a till. You got a safe. I know you do. That's store money, not mine to loan. Tom leaned on the counter. Pete, I've been buying feed from you for 2 decades. Never missed a payment. Never asked for a handout. I'm asking now. Pete stared at him. What's this about? A bull that deserves a second chance. Pete was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened the register, counted out $300, and went to the back room. Came back with another $300. You pay me back in 6 months, with interest. Tom's throat tightened. I will. I swear. He drove back to the ranch with $800 in cash and 5 minutes to spare. The slaughter truck was already there. Big semi with a livestock trailer, engine idling, driver leaning against the cab, smoking. Doug Whitaker stood nearby with Stan Cooper, watching 2 hands load Rebel up the ramp. Tom pulled his truck to a hard stop, dust flying. Stop! He yelled. Doug turned, annoyed. Bennett, what the hell are you doing? Tom walked straight up to him and held out the cash. $800, that's what you said. I'm buying the bull. Doug stared at the money, then at Tom. Where'd you get this? Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Because I'm curious how a ranch hand who makes $32,000 a year suddenly has $800 in cash. I borrowed it. Now take it and call off the truck. Doug didn't move. The deal's already done, Bennett. Bull's sold. Not till he's loaded. He's still on your property. That means I can still buy him. The truck driver flicked his cigarette away. Look, I don't care who pays me, but somebody needs to decide fast. I got 2 more stops today. Doug's jaw tightened. He looked at Tom, at the money, at the bull halfway up the ramp. Then he did something Tom didn't expect. He smiled. You really want this animal that bad? Yes. Fine, he's yours. Doug took the money. But when he breaks your fence, kicks your truck, or puts you in the hospital, don't come crying to me. I won't. Doug counted the bills slowly, then nodded to Stan. Pull him off the truck. Stan waved to the hands. They backed Rebel down the ramp. The bull stood in the yard, calm, watching Tom. Doug pocketed the cash. He's your problem now, Bennett. Good luck. He walked away laughing. Tom stood there, heart pounding, staring at the animal he'd just bought with money he didn't have. The truck driver shook his head. You got a death wish or just bad judgment? Maybe both, Tom muttered. The driver climbed in his cab and drove off. Tom was left alone with Rebel. The bull turned his head slowly, looked at Tom like he was trying to figure out what just happened. Tom walked closer, slowly, hands open. Easy, boy. You're safe now. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Rebel didn't move, just stood there, breathing steady. Tom reached out and touched the bull's shoulder. The muscle under the hide was solid, strong. This wasn't a weak animal. This was power waiting for direction. Let's get you home, Tom said quietly. He loaded Rebel into his own trailer, drove him to the small piece of land he rented 5 miles from Whitaker Ranch. 3 acres, a shed, a water tank. Not much, but it was all Tom had. And now it was Rebel's home too. As the sun set over the Texas hills, Tom stood by the fence watching the bull drink from the tank. He'd just spent every dollar he could borrow on an animal most people called worthless. But something told him this was the best decision he'd ever made. He just didn't know why yet. For the first week, Tom just watched. He didn't push Rebel, didn't try to train him, didn't force anything. He fed him twice a day, kept the water tank full, talked to him while he worked. You've been handled rough, Tom said one morning, leaning on the fence. I get it. Takes time to trust again. Rebel stood in the shade of the old shed, chewing hay, listening. Tom noticed things other people had missed. The way Rebel's ears tracked sound with precision, the way he positioned himself to see the whole property, the intelligence in his eyes when Tom moved around the pen. This wasn't a dangerous bull. This was a smart bull that had been misunderstood. On the 8th day, Tom opened the gate and walked into the pen. Rebel lifted his head, watched him approach. Tom stopped 10 feet away. I'm not here to fight you. Just want to see if we can work together. He held out his hand, palm open. No sudden moves. Rebel took 1 step forward, then another. Slowly, carefully, he stretched his neck and sniffed Tom's hand. Tom didn't move, barely breathed. Then Rebel lowered his head and let Tom touch his face. The bull's eyes half closed. A long, slow exhale escaped his nostrils. Tom felt something unlock in his chest. Yeah, he whispered. We're gonna be all right, you and me. 2 weeks later, Tom was working Rebel in the round pen. No ropes, no force, just body language and patience. Rebel moved when Tom asked, stopped when Tom stepped back, turned when Tom shifted his weight. It was like watching a dance. Ray Martinez drove up one afternoon and stood at the fence, watching in silence. That the same bull Whitaker called dangerous? Ray asked. Same one. Doesn't look dangerous to me. That's because nobody tried to understand him before. They just tried to control him. Ray shook his head slowly. You got a gift, Tom. I've seen cowboys work bulls my whole life. Never seen anything like this. It's not a gift. It's just paying attention. But word started to spread. A rancher named Carl Briggs stopped by. He'd heard about the rejected bull that Tom Bennett was training. Mind if I watch? Carl asked. Go ahead. Carl leaned on the fence and watched Tom work Rebel through a series of movements. Stop, turn, back up, move forward. all with just hand signals and body positioning. When they finished, Carl walked over. That bull moves like he's reading your mind. He's reading my body. Animals don't need words if you know how to communicate. Carl was quiet for a moment. I got a young bull. Good bloodlines. But he's aggressive. Won't load. Won't be handled. I've had 3 guys try to break him. All failed. Breaking's the wrong word. What would you call it? Teaching. Carl studied Tom's face. Would you take a look at him? I'll pay you. Tom hesitated. He'd never hired himself out as a trainer. Never thought of himself that way. But he needed the money. Owed Pete. Owed Ray. Yeah, I'll take a look. Carl's bull was a nightmare. 2-year-old Angus. Mean eyes. Kicked at anything that moved. Tom spent 3 hours with him. Didn't touch him once. Just observed. He's scared, Tom said finally. Scared. That bull tried to kill my foreman. Because he's scared. Someone hurt him when he was young. Now he thinks every human's a threat. Can you fix him? I can try. But it'll take time. 2 weeks later, Carl's bull was loading into trailers without a fight. Carl paid Tom $300 and told every rancher he knew. Within a month, Tom had 4 clients. Within 2 months, he had 10. Cowboys from across the county brought their problem animals to the quiet man who worked miracles with rejected bulls. Tom didn't call it miracles. He called it respect. One afternoon, Doug Whitaker's truck pulled up to Tom's property. Tom was in the round pen with Rebel. He stopped and walked to the fence. Doug got out, arms crossed, watching. Heard you've been training bulls for half the county. Word travels. Heard you're good at it too. Tom didn't respond. Doug looked at Rebel. Really looked at him. At the calm way the bull stood. At the muscle definition in his frame. At the alertness in his eyes. That's the same bull I sold you? Same one. Doug's jaw worked. He looks different. He's not different. You just never saw what he actually was. Doug didn't like that. His face hardened. I came here to make you an offer. I'm listening. I'll buy him back. $1,000. That's $200 more than you paid. Tom crossed his arms. He's not for sale. $1,500. No. $2,000. Final offer. Tom stared at Doug Whitaker, at the man who'd thrown Rebel away like garbage, who'd called him worthless, who'd sent him to slaughter without a second thought. You don't get it, do you? Tom said quietly. Get what? Rebel's not about money. He's about what happens when you give something a second chance instead of giving up on it. Doug's face flushed red. You're making a mistake, Bennett. That bull's worth real money now. You could sell him and clear your debts. I could, but I won't. Why not? Tom looked at Rebel standing calm in the pen, at the animal everyone had rejected, at the bull who'd trusted him when he had every reason not to. Because some things aren't for sale. Doug stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked back to his truck. Before he climbed in, he looked back. You could have been rich, Bennett. Tom smiled. I am rich. I just measure it different than you. Doug drove off in a cloud of dust. Tom walked back to Rebel. The bull lowered his head and Tom scratched behind his ears. We're good right here, boy, Tom said softly. We don't need their money. And for the first time in his life, Tom Bennett felt like he'd finally won. 150 days. That's how long it had been since Tom Bennett spent $800 borrowed dollars on a bull everyone called worthless. Now, standing on his small porch at sunset, Tom barely recognized his own life. The 3 acres weren't empty anymore. He'd built a proper training pen, fixed the shed, added a second water tank. The place looked like it mattered now. Because it did. But the biggest change wasn't the property. It was Tom himself. Ray Martinez pulled up in his truck, followed by Carl Briggs and 2 other ranchers Tom had trained bulls for. We bring in the beer or you? Ray called out, grinning. Tom smiled. I got it covered. Come on in. 6 months ago, Tom ate dinner alone every night. Went days without talking to anyone. Spent evenings in silence with only the sound of crickets and his own thoughts. Now, his porch was full of friends. They sat in mismatched chairs, drinking cold beer, talking about cattle and training methods and the upcoming rodeo season. Laughing, telling stories, the kind of easy conversation that only happens between people who respect each other. Carl raised his bottle. To Tom Bennett, the man who taught us that rejected don't mean worthless. Here, here, the others echoed. Tom felt his face flush. I didn't do anything special, just gave Rebel a chance, and changed everything because of it, Ray said. You got 10 clients now, Tom. 10 ranchers paying you good money to fix what they thought was broken. Tom looked at Rebel grazing peacefully in the pasture. The bull had put on 200 pounds of muscle. His coat gleamed. He moved with confidence and calm. Rebel did the work, Tom said quietly. I just stopped getting in his way. After the others left, Tom sat alone with his ledger book. He'd been keeping careful records. Every dollar earned, every dollar spent, every payment made. The numbers told a story he could barely believe. In 5 months, he'd earned $10,347, more money than he'd ever had in his life. He'd paid back Pete Granger in full, with interest. Paid back Ray Martinez, cleared every debt, and still had money left over. Tom stared at the number, ran his finger over the ink. A year ago, he'd been an invisible ranch hand making barely enough to survive, living paycheck to paycheck in a trailer that wasn't his, no savings, no future, no hope of anything changing. Now he had options. He could buy his own land, could expand, could build a real training facility.
Easy now, easy.
But the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was the phone call he'd gotten that afternoon. A woman named Susan Reeves had called from 2 counties over.
It's just me, girl.
Mr. Bennett,
You're fine.
I heard about what you did with that rejected bull. And I have a horse. She was abused by her previous owner. Won't let anyone touch her. The vet says I should put her down. Tom had heard the pain in Susan's voice, the love for an animal she was about to lose. Don't put her down yet, Tom had said. Let me try. I can't pay much. Doesn't matter. Just give her a chance. That's what it had become. Not a business, a mission. Tom had discovered something in those 150 days. He wasn't just good at training animals. He was good at seeing the ones everyone else had given up on. The rejected, the forgotten, the ones with no hope of getting better. And he was giving them second chances. Doug Whitaker showed up the next morning. Tom was working with a young mare that had been starved and beaten. She trembled at every movement, but she was starting to trust. Doug stood at the fence, watching in silence. When Tom finished, he walked over. Heard you're making good money now, Doug said. Doing all right. Better than all right. 10 grand in 5 months. That's more than most cowboys make in a year. Tom wiped sweat from his forehead. What do you want, Doug? I want to make you an offer. A real one this time. I told you Rebel's not for sale. I'm not here for Rebel. Doug pulled an envelope from his jacket. I'm here to offer you a job. Head trainer at Whitaker Ranch. $50,000 a year. Full benefits. Your own facility. Tom stared at the envelope. $50,000. It was more money than he'd ever dreamed of making. Why? Tom asked. Because you're the best I've ever seen. And because I was wrong about you. About Rebel. About everything. Doug's voice softened. I've been running that ranch like a factory, treating animals like products. And I'm losing good stock because I don't know how to see what you see. Tom looked at Rebel, at the bull grazing peacefully, at the animal that had changed his entire life. I appreciate the offer, Doug. I really do. But I can't work for you. Doug's face hardened. Why not? Because what I'm doing here isn't about money. It's about the ones nobody wants, the rejected, the forgotten, the animals people throw away because they don't fit the system. Tom gestured toward his small property. This place, it's not much, but it's mine. And every animal that comes through here gets treated like they matter. Not like a product, not like an investment, like a life worth saving. He looked Doug in the eye. Your ranch can't give me that, because your ranch is still about profit. And what I do? It's about redemption. Doug was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're a better man than me, Tom Bennett. No, I'm just a man who got a second chance. And now I'm passing it on. Doug put the envelope back in his jacket. If you ever change your mind, I won't. Doug drove away. Tom stood there watching the dust settle. Ray walked up beside him. You just turned down $50,000. Yeah. You crazy? Tom smiled. Maybe, but I'd rather be crazy and purposeful than rich and empty. That evening, Tom sat on his porch with Rebel standing nearby. The bull had wandered over on his own, like he always did now. Just wanted to be close. Tom reached out and scratched behind Rebel's ear. 150 days ago, I was a lonely cowboy with nothing, Tom said softly. Now I got friends. Got work that matters. Got $10,000 saved and animals lining up for help. He paused. All because I gave you a chance when nobody else would. Rebel huffed gently. Tom looked at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He thought about Susan's horse, about the 3 other animals people had called him about this week, about the rejected souls waiting for someone to see their worth. We're just getting started, aren't we, boy? Rebel's ear flicked, and Tom Bennett, the lone cowboy who'd once been invisible to the world, smiled. Because he'd learned the most important lesson of his life. When you give the rejected a second chance, you don't just save them, you save yourself.